Yo, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Green Room. Now, you're probably looking at me wondering what's going on. I said, you used to a certain vibe for The Green Room, right? You're normally used to me being on a Zoom call and having a guest, some guest featured musician from the Lucian Musicians platform. But today, it's just me. And that's okay because I feel like it's time that we talked. I feel like it's time that you and I had a one-on-one. And I'm going to dig into some things, a lot of things mostly related to the Lucian Musicians platform today. I won't be too long because after all, it's just me talking to you. All right. So I just have about 3 things that I want to cover. First thing is my story, right? I feel like it's time we get to know each other a little bit better. So who am I and how did I end up forming what is now Lucian Musicians? So first off, let's start out with how I actually started playing music, right? So I was in Form 1. Now, for those of you in the US, for those of you outside of the Caribbean, Form 1 is the 7th grade, right? And one of my best friends at the time, and still a very good friend of mine today, was Sam Tappin. Still call him Sam. And he was a drummer, right? And he was already a great drummer at that age, playing for different stuff. And he used to come back to school and tell me, yeah, boy, I love music so much, boy. I was playing. I just love when I play and everything. So I kind of got tired of him saying that because I wanted to see what he was talking about, So I kind of sat down and I was like, all right, what if I started playing music? And remember, this is me in Form 1 in the 7th grade. If I start playing music, what would I play? So I say, okay, I kind of like the piano, so let me learn that, right? But despite me asking the parents and stuff to let me go to the St. Lucia School of Music, that wasn't really in the cards for me. So I couldn't really find anybody to teach me. So I started to teach myself. My aunt had a little Casio keyboard, and I sat down and I, tried to teach myself the little C major scale. All right. Taught myself my first chord. And but that's where it stopped. Like I there was nothing else that I could really do. There was nobody to teach me. So I was telling one of my partners that when I just in casual conversation, and he told me, "Yo, you should come to the church with me. I'm having one of the guys teach me bass." Now at the time, I had never even thought about bass. It wasn't really something that I was dying to learn. I'd like to see our bassist play, but I never really thought of learning it. So I went with him. And it's funny because that day, as soon as I picked up the bass, I was so interested that I was way more interested than the guy who was actually supposed to learn. So, I learned, okay, this is how you hold it. This is how you pluck it. All the really basic stuff. But from that day on, I was hooked. So I would come to church and I'd be looking at the bassist, trying to get a chance to play or trying to look at what his hands are doing and stuff like that. Also, guys, if you're listening to this on the podcast and my voice sounds a little less crisp than it normally does, it's because I'm recording this in my living room. And you might be hearing some ambient sound. So if that bothers you, I apologize. Hopefully I can get rid of some of it in editing. If not, you already know. It's probably not that bad. All right? So anyway, back to the story. So yeah, man, I used to start playing for little Sunday services and Wednesday services at my church, Seventh-day Adventist. And, I started to work my way up, boy. I started to get a little bit better and stuff. But my ear wasn't that good because I used to be wondering, like, how am I knowing when the next chord is coming and stuff. And slowly but surely my ear started to develop to the point where I could actually hear what was going on. And I kind of wish I had help there with like etching and but anyway, moving on, fast forward a few years, and I was you know, I've been playing for a little while now, but I wasn't taking it as seriously as I should have, right? So I wasn't as good as I should have been. And there was one morning, things went really badly. Not really badly, but okay, here's what happened, right? The reason I said really badly is because I wasn't sure if I really wanted to tell you all the story, but I'll tell it, okay? Because it's just us, okay? I was playing for a service, not playing very well. And I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was kind of mediocre. So anyway, one of the guys was playing with me. He gets up in the middle of a song, calls his son from the back, and me and that guy are still good friends today. But he calls his son from the back and tells him to come and take my bass from me and play the rest of the song in the middle of a service. So I was so embarrassed, I went downstairs, I was vexed, I was crying, I saying, yeah, boy, music here for me again, I'm tired of that. Yeah, man, there for me, I'll just stop playing. But my mom had just bought my first bass. You know what I mean? So I'm saying at this point, yeah, man, I could just stop playing, because I have the instrument there. And, and when you really love something, you can't really stop. So instead of stopping, I decided, all right, let me get a little bit better. Let me learn and actually become a better bassist, which should have been the first thing that I thought of doing, right? But it wasn't. I'm just being honest. So I started to really learn my fundamentals, and I learned my scales, and I started to learn the fretboard better and started practicing, and I started to get a little bit better, right? And then I left secondary school, and secondary school for you Americans and people overseas is high school. So I left secondary school, and now I moved. So I moved overseas, and I attended Andrews University. Now, Andrews was a different speeder, because now I'm adjusting to a whole different experience playing gospel music, and at a much more professional level that I was accustomed to playing at my home church in St. Lucia and stuff like that. And so I was challenged to take my playing to an even further level and to just really expand on my craft. And so those years at Andrews were a very good experience for me musically, because I got to play with some of my best friends and some guys who were very talented, and who I'm glad to still call friends to this day. And then from there I moved to Boston, where I played at this church called Jubilee, which is Phil Thompson's church. And that was a good experience too. I played with some really great guys there as well. And now you're probably wondering, okay, Keddy, with all this story, with all these things about your musical life and stuff, tell us a little bit about how Lucian Musicians was formed. What Lucian Musicians is, what vision you have for Lucian Musicians, and where you see all this going. Okay? All right, cool. Just cool out. I'll tell you. All right. But anyway, here's what Lucian Musicians is. So first off, a little known fact is that Lucian Musicians is actually a brainchild. Is it brainchild? Is that the word that you use there? The Lucian Musicians was influenced by Black Surfer, right? And if you happen to know about it, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, Black Surfer is an online community of gospel musicians, primarily people in the industry who get together, talk about music, and over time it has expanded even beyond music to include stuff like games and video games and stuff like that. And I had a lot of Lucian friends who were missing out on some of the great live arrangements and covers and all these great things that were being shared in the Black Sofa group. And at the time, I don't think I was privy to adding somebody to that group. So I got the bright idea to say, okay, what if we had a Caribbean Black Sofa for Caribbean musicians, because the Caribbean musicians experience is a little bit different from somebody in the United States, a gospel musician in the United States, and maybe we would benefit from having our own space, right? And so I created a Facebook group. I can't remember what it was initially called, maybe I can check Facebook archives, but I don't believe it was called the Lucian Musicians. It might have been Lucian Music at first or something so. But it became Lucian Musicians. And what I used to do there is I would share all stuff like I would share different musicians, live arrangements, very similar to what we're doing on Instagram today. But of course, the frequency and the consistency was a lot. You see, I tell you all about the ambient noise. That was just a truck that just passed outside. Yeah, but hopefully it's not too bad. So far, so good, right? I think the quality isn't that bad. And in editing, I might just remove all this part and carry on. But anyway, or I might not. Who knows? Anyway, so what was I saying? We were talking about how Lucian Musicians was formed. And so I was saying that I would share stuff, but not as consistently as I currently share on the Lucian Musicians Instagram platform. And yeah, boy, that group started growing. The Lucian Musicians group got up to about 300 something people. And at the time I was kind of surprised because I was really only expecting my musician friends, people that actually know me from Compre and stuff like that. But it expanded to a little bit beyond that. And so it got to the point where I wanted to put together a shed, and that might be coming sooner, but we'll talk about that later. I wanted to put together a shed for musicians on the island, and not just a shed, but also like a workshop too, because one of my passions as well is learning and giving people access to some of the information that I wish I had access to along the way. Feeding the next generation, you know what I mean? So I started putting together the shed, and it didn't really work out because there was just logistical problems. And after that, I had just left Andrews University, and I was now going to start working, and I had a girlfriend and thing, and I had amateur vibe, distractions going on. So I kind of just pulled back a little bit from Lucian Musicians. And for how long? 2-3 years, Lucian Musicians was just quiet. There was nothing really happening. And sometime last year, I realized, but hold on. That was a vibe. And I now had an expanded skill set where, I could build a website. I knew a little bit more about social media. I realized that it was possible for me to build a brand that would be a home for Caribbean instrumentalists. And I decided to do that. And that became Lucian Musicians. Now, here's the thing about Lucian Musicians. Lucian Musicians is not just something that I want to do for fun, right? Because I find that when you just do something for fun and there's no sort of profitability, there's no sort of investment, or if you're making the investments with no return over a long period of time, eventually you end up coming against somebody telling you that, okay, it's not really worth your time anymore. And what can happen is you just disappear, right? And I don't want to disappear. I intend on doing Lucian Musicians for a long, long, long time, all right? So I what I'm basically doing is I'm using different streams of income to see if I can make Lucian Musicians an actual profitable venture, and in doing so, making it sustainable and something that can really continue to drive Caribbean talent, something that can really continue to push Caribbean talent to where it needs to go. And so far, so good. We're now, the YouTube growing real slow. So if you're watching this, make sure you subscribe. The YouTube going slow, but Instagram has become the hub for Lucian Musicians, where we post in every week. On Thursdays, we do Throwback Thursdays. We do Lucian Musicians Favorites, which is once a month. That might be changing soon because my bandwidth is shrinking a little bit because I have a lot more distractions and stuff here in St. Lucia, which I just moved to recently. So Lucian Musicians Favorites might become Lucian Musicians Favorite, where it's just one favorite. You know what I mean? All right. So there's that. And here's something that you can look forward to. It's Lucian Musicians Learning. Currently, if you go to the website, you'll see that I have some scattered clips and stuff of different things that you can use to expand on your craft. But we want to create our own content. We want to give Caribbean musicians an opportunity to create their own content and teach and give back, right? So the first person we're starting out with, I'm not going to mention his name because we haven't recorded yet and you never know what can happen. But I'm really looking forward to working with him. He's a very experienced and talented keyboard player, piano player. And I'm really looking forward to working with him. We should be recording next week, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that. And that's definitely one way that Lucian Musicians can sustain itself. Also, we are open to donations, you know. So I know a lot of y'all fellas out there, y'all have a lot of money. So all I'm saying is, if you like what Lucian Musicians does, do not be afraid to reach out to us and donate, help us stay afloat. You know, there are some investments that have been made into building the Lucian Musicians brand into what it is right now, and there's a lot of investments that will be made into building it into even more of a force to be reckoned with when it comes to providing a home for Caribbean instrumentalists and music. Let me tell you all something. I am constantly surprised by how every single day, there's never been a single day since I started the consistent posting on Instagram where I had to look around and say, boy, but where they have no videos to post, they have nothing to post. No, every single day, I can easily find somebody who's extremely talented, somebody who you can connect with their music and get in the music. Hashtag get in the music. But very often, you know, it's easy for me to find somebody to feature. And I'm so excited for what the future holds in store, man. When it comes to a shed, and for those of you who do not use the word shed is a word I got from my time in the States. But when I say shed, I mean a jam session, right? I'm thinking that we can have something for Lucian Musicians. I'm thinking we can have something for Lucian Musicians maybe next year. And maybe, you know, have it once a month or once every other month, which might sound, that sounds a little bit more feasible to me. Once every other month. But let me know what y'all think. Another thing I've been thinking about, you know, very similar to Comfy Couch. If you follow them, good. But if you don't, make sure you go check out Comfy Couch Concerts. I really love their concept and their execution on that concept. Because in these COVID times, entertainment has suffered. The artists have been suffering. And finding a way to showcase the abilities of these talented persons is very important. And so I really endorse and appreciate what Comfy Couch is doing. Make sure you go check them out on Instagram. I'm thinking of doing something similar for musicians. And when I say musicians, I mean instrumentalists specifically. So it's not necessarily in any way a competitive thing with Comfy Couch, but it would be the same stream of thought, but slightly different regarding content. And I'm kind of on the fence of doing like a gospel open mic sort of vibe. Or it might just be a regular open mic where everybody can come in. But, you know, I'm a gospel musician, so that's who I am. That is who I am fundamentally. So I feel like I might work better in a gospel open mic environment. Might be a Friday night thing once a month. Yeah, some of the ideas swimming in my head. And if you know anything about me, I'm about execution. So I try to make my ideas come to life. Huh? So yeah, man. Thank you for listening. I don't think I have anything else to share with you on this episode, but if anything else comes up, I will eventually have another episode where it's just me. And I hope that you learned a little bit about who I am. You learned a little bit about Lucian Musicians. Thank you so much for your support. If you have been supporting us along the way, especially those of you who have been with Lucian Musicians from the very beginning when we were a Facebook group and I didn't know any of this would be happening or I would be doing any of this. So yeah, appreciate you. Give thanks. And remember, get into music. Take it easy.